Through the Black Curtain, the Cathara, Voyager, and the Borg by Dominion Publishing Trademark. If you enjoy this work, please rate, comment, join, and share as it helps me with the algorithm to reach new readers. The complete 210-page book with 87 high-resolution cinematic digital painting images is available now at Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Nobles, Google Books, Kobo, and Spotify. Links are in the description. The book is available in audiobook, ebook, paperback, hardcover, and screenplay. If you purchase the audiobook, you will receive the ebook for free so that you have the high-resolution images and can read along. Preface. This speculative extrapolation explores the evolution of a species native to a void. Specifically, the aliens depicted in Star Trek Voyager's episode Night, Season 5, Episode 1, that live in a void in the Delta Quadrant, which we will refer to as the Cathara. Voids are vast, nearly empty regions of space. Blending canon, astrophysics, evolutionary biology, cultural anthropology, and strategic theory. This thought experiment presents a comprehensive analysis of this species' planetary system, biology, and evolutionary path to space travel. Upon filling the holes left from canon, a scenario of how Voyager really would have fared against this species without the convenient plot armor of the series will be explored. I started writing these thought experiments due to the horrible science fiction content that is currently being vomited out by Hollywood. My favorite science fiction growing up was books by Piers Anthony, Jack L. Chalker, Philip Jose Farmer, and Marvel Comics. Favorite television shows were, of course, Star Trek. To be specific, Star Trek, the original series, Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Enterprise. The other so-called Star Trek shows are complete and utter garbage, having nothing to do with canon and will never be mentioned or referenced in any speculative extrapolations that I will write in the future. Lacking any decent material to watch since 2005, I spend my leisure time rewatching the shows I know well and love. However, I have a hunger for new, mind-expanding sci-fi, especially Star Trek, and this book is an effort to quench that thirst. If you're a kindred spirit that thinks about the impossible, if you're a dreamer of distant worlds and civilizations, then dream with me. Euftis Emery. Cosmological context of the Delta Quadrant void. The void in the Delta Quadrant is a vast region of space nearly devoid of stars and matter. With the void being approximately 7,200 light-years across, assuming Voyager traveled at warp 9.975 continuously for 2 years. This is roughly 10% of the estimated 70,000 light-years from the Delta Quadrant to Earth, which is why Voyager took the risk in going through it versus around. A vast cosmic desert of this nature would make planetary evolution extremely rare but not impossible. With little to go on from canon, let's engage in a thought experiment to fill in the blanks on this species. Planetary system characteristics. Given the scarcity of stars and matter in the void, any planetary system that evolved life would likely exhibit unusual astrophysical and geophysical traits. Cathara star system, star type. Likely a long-lived metal-poor K-type dwarf star or red dwarf that is stable, cool, as they offer the best chances to find support life over immense timescales. This type of star system is the likely candidate for the Cathara, as in the Voyager episode. They stated that they had lived for millions of years undisturbed in the void until the Milan began polluting their space. Star age. 10+ billion years, possibly from one of the first star formation epochs in the void. Metallicity. Low, heavy elements would be rare, resulting in different planetary chemistry and biology. Location. Possibly near the periphery of the void or in one of its few filamentary islands of matter. Planet details. Name for discussion. Cathara. Mass. 1.2 Earth masses. Gravity. 1.1 g. Slightly higher than Earth. Atmosphere. Nitrogen rich with higher helium content, low oxygen compared to Earth approximately 15%, leading to more efficient cellular respiration mechanisms. Rotation/orbit. Tidally locked or slow rotation due to gravitational interactions in a multi-planet system. For this thought experiment, the assumption is Cathara is tidally locked. Magnetic field. Weak or absent, compensated by a dense atmosphere and or underground shelters. Surface conditions. Constant auroral activity from cosmic rays. Sparse sunlight, requiring biosystems adapted to low light or infrared photosynthesis. Dayside conditions of Cathara. The day side of a tidally locked planet never experiences sunset. The sun remains fixed overhead or near zenith, depending on location, creating a radically different environment from Earth's rotating hemispheres. Solar exposure. Perpetual daylight with no diurnal cycle. The K-type star emits less intense light than our Sun, a G-type, but continuous exposure compensates. Spectral output shifts toward orange, red, and infrared, meaning most radiation is in longer wavelengths. No shadows move. They remain locked in place for years, if not millennia. Temperature and climate. Extreme surface heating near the substellar point directly beneath the sun. Equatorial dayside likely averages 60 to 80 degrees Celsius, 140 to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, potentially hotter at lower altitudes. High temperatures drive powerful convection systems. Planet-wide Hadley cell circulation. Hot air rises on the day side and flows toward the night side. Moisture cycles are localized. Storms form and dissipate in place, forming vertical megaclouds. Atmospheric conditions. Thick cloud coverage likely near the substellar point as rising warm air condenses moisture. Outer edges of the day side, closer to the terminator, might have clearer skies. Intense greenhouse gases could be present depending on atmospheric composition, stabilizing temperature gradients, high wind shear between upper and lower layers. Flora adaptations. Plants on Cathara are the most specialized. Light adaptation. Evolved for photosynthesis under constant light, often in the infrared or red spectrum. Pigments, black, deep indigo, or metallic reflective surfaces to avoid overheating. Leaf structures might fold up during the hottest periods. Angle away from direct light. Use internal reflectors or fiber optic channels to diffuse radiation. Water retention. Cactus-like forms or root-deep tubers storing moisture. Leaf cuticles with reflective waxes or crystal lattices. Fog harvesting near the morning terminator boundary. Fauna adaptations. Animal life must cope with constant exposure, brightness, and heat. General traits. Burrowing or crepuscular behavior, only active near dawn-dusk edge zones. Reflective or translucent skin, possibly embedded with silicate or keratin plates. Long limbs to minimize surface heat transfer and keep bodies elevated from the ground. Highly efficient respiratory and cooling systems such as radiative cooling fins, surface evaporative membranes, senses, reduced reliance on sight near the substellar point due to intense glare, greater use of electromagnetic sensing, pressure gradients, or vibration-based detection, geology and surface features. Surface crust may be baked and cracked, resembling desert or volcanic plains. Areas near the substellar point could be scorched and sterile into a dead zone. Towering silicate or ice-capped mountains at the thermal boundary where updrafts stall. Potential for lava tubes or cave networks offering refuge in microclimates. Cultural and civilizational impact. Catharans on the day side would likely live underground or in thermally shielded structures, build around stable sun angles, develop infrared-based agriculture. Consider the sun deified or feared based on its immovable dominance. Twilight side conditions of Cathara, Terminator Zone. This region where day meets night is a narrow, stable belt encircling the planet. It's one of the most habitable and biologically diverse zones due to its constant balance between light and dark, heat and cold. Lighting and sky conditions. The sun remains frozen near the horizon, casting perpetual golden hour light on the day-facing side. A deep shadowed gradient toward the night-facing side. The sky blends warm orange or amber with cool indigo and stars. Sunset and starlight coexist. Light is oblique, creating long shadows, enhanced contrast and atmospheric scattering, permanent twilight haze near the horizon. Temperature and climate. Mild temperatures, generally temperate due to the constant indirect solar input. Day edge, warm and dry. Night edge, cool and humid. Potential for stable precipitation cycles, rain, mist, snow, depending on geography. This region buffers extreme heat and cold, so weather systems tend to circulate within it. Fog banks, dew cycles, and low cloud ceilings are likely due to condensation from nightside air. Atmospheric dynamics. Winds driven from dayside, high pressure, to nightside, low pressure. Twilight zone sits in the crosswinds of global atmospheric circulation. Expect strong, low-level jet streams and high-altitude wave clouds. Turbulent but predictable, like Earth's jet stream on steroids, but stable in place. Flora adaptations. This is likely the most biologically rich region on the planet. Light adaptation. Plants adapted to low-angle, low-intensity light. Use red and infrared photosynthesis. Heliotropic behavior is exaggerated. Plants may twist slowly to face the frozen sun. Leaf pigments range from deep violet to silver blue, possibly black. Thermal and water adaptation. Moisture-loving species grow nearer to the night side. Plants may exhibit hybrid strategies. Dayside traits, thick cuticles, slow photosynthesis. Nightside traits, bioluminescence, high water retention. Fauna adaptations. Twilight zone fauna must be adapted to low light, moderate temperatures, fluctuating microclimates caused by elevation and airflows. Typical traits: large eyes, wide pupils, or multifaceted lenses for gathering dim light, heat-sensitive pits or membranes for detecting body temperature or geothermal gradients. May exhibit crepuscular behaviors, active in the dim zones. Skins often have adaptive camouflage, shifting in tone depending on light exposure. Bioluminescence is common, not for light, but for communication or luring prey. Surface features and geography. Terrain is likely eroded by consistent wind and moisture cycling. Expect features like mossy rock shelves, alien tide pool-like basins, canyon mist valleys. Ice or snow might begin forming on elevated slopes toward the dark side. Potential for civilization. Cathara civilization probably began in the Twilight Zone, and through war and competition for resources, portions of the population migrated to the light and dark regions. Reasons: livable climate with minimal technological adaptation needed, access to both. Solar power from horizon-locked sun, condensed water from night-side airflow. Strategic geography, view of the sun for navigation, view of stars for astronomy. Culture might be built around concepts of balance, light/dark, heat/cold, stillness/motion. Fixed compass due to the stationary sun. Architecture aligned to thermal gradients or direction of light. Settlements built along altitude-based microclimates. Nightside conditions of Cathara. This hemisphere never receives sunlight. Any heat or light comes from atmospheric circulation, geothermal energy, or biological or technological sources. Lighting conditions. Absolute darkness in most regions, akin to the deep ocean or underground caves on Earth. No natural daylight. Starlight visible. The sky is always pitch black and filled with few stars. Occasional illumination sources. Auroras, if there's a magnetic field. Volcanism or geothermal glow. Bioluminescent life. Reflected light from Cathara's 3 moons. Temperature. Frigid and near cryogenic in areas furthest from geothermal activity. Average surface temperatures could reach -100 degrees Celsius to -200 degrees Celsius, depending on atmosphere. Atmosphere helps retain heat, so temperatures aren't as extreme as deep space. Think Antarctica in permanent winter, or Mars-like in thinner atmospheric zones. Subsurface temperatures likely more stable due to insulation. Atmospheric and weather patterns. The night side is low pressure due to cold, dense air. Winds from the day side converge here, creating jet streams, eddy currents and downbursts, high-altitude ice clouds or CO2 snow. May have perpetual snowstorms or crystal precipitation, fog banks formed from condensed breathables. Geology and terrain. Likely shaped by cryovolcanism, glacier-like flows, wind erosion from incoming atmospheric cells. Terrain features could include basalt plains, crystal fields, deep canyons filled with ice mist. Geothermal vents could break the cold monotony, forming hotspot oases. Flora possibilities. If plant analogs exist, they'd rely on chemosynthesis, not photosynthesis. Heat sources, geothermal vents, decaying organic matter. Fungal analogs, more likely than photosynthetic trees. Traits might include spore-based reproduction, bioluminescence for communication or mimicry, radiation harvesting, radioactive soil chemistry, crystalline growths acting like antennae or light funnels, fauna adaptations. Life here mirrors deep-sea ecosystems, cave fauna, or Arctic extremophiles. Common traits: no vision or highly adapted low-light organs, thermal sensing, electroreception, or vibration detection, slow metabolism, thick insulating skin, fur, or exoskeletons, bioluminescence for luring prey, mating, or navigating. Possible behavior: dormancy during long cold periods, migratory patterns into twilight zones or geothermal zones, social clustering around rare heat sources, dark side Catharan civilization. Cathara on the night side would be shaped by survival in scarcity, subsurface living in geothermal tunnel networks, navigation by magnetics or sound, not light. Tech could involve thermoelectric systems, fungal bioculture, cave resonance architecture. Their mythologies might revolve around the unseen sun, the warmth bringers, the edge of dawn as a sacred or forbidden place. Why the night side might be crucial: stable conditions over millions of years equals biological refuges. Preserves genetic archives as a planetary cold storage. Key for ancient microbial life. Experimental extremophile adaptations, relics of evolutionary forks lost on the volatile day side. Evolution of the Cathara. Despite extreme isolation and low star density, with convergent evolution, or the ancient race that seeded the galaxy as depicted in the Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Chase, would lead to a human-like body plan due to biomechanical efficiency. In the Voyager episode, the Cathara were depicted as a squat amphibious-like species. However, this thought experiment disagrees with that assessment due to the Catharan environment. It is surmised there would be 3 distinct types of Cathara, with different genetic traits due to centuries of adaptation to the light, twilight, and dark regions. These differences will be explored in a later section. General Catharan physiological traits. Body plan: bipedal, upright, tall and slender, approximately 2.2 meters average. Optimized for long-distance locomotion in low-gravity/high-pressure environments. Skin: deep, black, or translucent with chromatophores, absorbs maximal radiation and protects against cosmic rays. Eyes: gigantic, lens-covered, with multi-layered retina, adapted for low light, infrared, and electromagnetic sensing. Lungs: hyper-efficient, possibly with cross-current exchange like birds or multi-stage gas extraction. Skeletal structure: flexible, cartilaginous reinforced with carbon silicate composites. General Catherine cognitive and neural profile. Neural architecture. Distributed, possibly a secondary neural ring in the torso. Memory and cognition may rely on biochemical storage, protein folding, or crystal lattices. Perception. EM wave sensitivity, echolocation, and pressure gradients. Vision is supplemented by synesthetic senses, for instance, tasting radiation. Decide Catharans. Genetic traits. Melanin and chitin-like shielding to reflect harsh solar radiation. Narrow eyes with UV and IR filters. Some may have protective lenses or reflective membranes. High sweat efficiency or internal cooling mechanisms. Skin tones, copper, bronze, matte black with solar deflective textures. Enhanced renal systems for water conservation. Social structure. Strong emphasis on communal resource sharing, especially water and shade. Architecture and society built around thermal gradients and solar exposure cycles. Clans organized by access to shelter or thermal engineering knowledge. Solar engineers, shield weavers, and shade stewards are respected castes. Religion and cosmology. The sun is often revered as a binding force or eternal judge. Religious observances focus on ritual shielding, solar tracking, and heat discipline. Mythologies may frame the day as the trial of flame, life through endurance. They see the night as death or as a mythic underworld. Twilight Zone Catharans. Genetic traits. Balanced physiology tolerates both warmth and cold. Large adaptive eyes suited for dim light and color variation. Chromatophores for communication, emotion, or camouflage. Skin tones. Rich indigo, deep violet with bioluminescent tattoos or ambient patterning. Social structure. Often the most populous and diverse region, home to cultural synthesis. Trade and knowledge exchange hubs between light and dark side peoples. Clans are typically multidisciplinary: builders, navigators, plant keepers, diplomats. A flexible matrilineal or dual lineage system may dominate. Religion and cosmology. Deeply philosophical and symbolic. The twilight is a liminal realm. Religious figures called edgewalkers or horizon keepers. Rituals emphasize balance, duality, and the moment of flux. The sun and stars are seen as equal halves of a whole, not opposites. Nightside Catharans. Genetic traits. Near total visual adaptation to darkness, bioluminescent spots, large low-light eyes, thicker skin layers, sometimes with insulating or reflective properties, may emit heat signatures for communication or mating. Skin tones, obsidian, ultramarine, midnight blue with flickering biolights. Social structure. Subsurface dwellers or geothermal networkers forming deep-rooted ancestral enclaves. Memory preservation, oratory, and story mining are core social values, likely more conservative, clan-bound, or ancestor-venerating. Leadership often based on wisdom and historical memory, not visibility or dominance. Religion and cosmology. The dark is sacred, intimate, and infinite. The sun is often seen as an intruder or distant destructive god. Nightside Cathara worship depth, stillness, and internal light. May practice echo-based or radiant communion using vibrations or thermal signals. Cathara as a unified Type 2 civilization. Overview. Now fully unified, the Catharan have transformed the Cathara home system into a Dyson complex multi-habitat civilization. They do not dominate through conquest, but through precision ecosystem engineering, stellar management, and distributed cultural integration. Each biome origin Cathara population plays a vital role. Biocultural roles by region. Dayside Cathara, stellar engineers and radiant stewards. Legacy, mastery of high thermal environments, roles in society. Operators of Dyson swarm components, solar mirrors, and orbiting energy arrays. Designers of sun-facing orbital habitats, thermal regulators, and solar forge facilities. Custodians of heliocentric code ethics, ensuring energy use aligns with balance. Deep involvement in spacecraft propulsion design via stellar wind harvesting. Direct primordial black hole mining operations of exotic energy. Cultural features. Wear light channeling robes woven from solar reactive fibers. Reside in sun temples on orbital platforms and planet-facing satellites. Rituals include solar alignment dances and flare-marking ceremonies on solar anniversaries. Twilight Zone Cathara, core diplomats, city designers, and ecological interfacers. Legacy, balance, adaptation, mediation roles in society. Planners of multi-clade city habitats on planetary moons and orbit station biomes. Act as interzonal coordinators, resolving political, cultural, and species memory tensions. Direct terraforming projects on rocky planets and artificial planetoids. Lead the Symbiosis Assembly, which governs planetary and interorbital relations. Cultural features. Wear adaptive clothing with mood-responsive pigment morphing. Structures are built around the idea of interlocking shadow/light arcs with spatial poetry. Hold twilight convergences, planet-wide diplomatic rituals involving thousands of voices and lights. Nightside Cathara, data historians, navigators, warriors, and subsurface designers. Legacy, depth, memory, stealth, and time roles in society. Manage the planetary subsurface data core, a geological-scale quantum memory archive. Operate cold fusion reactors, deep oceanic labs, and subsurface colonization ships. Lead planetary orbit synchronization for star-aligned rituals and system timing. Dominates the military. Serve as high-level advisors in the Continuum Council, the keepers of Catharan history and fate. Direct black dwarf mining operations of exotic matter. Cultural features. Wear insulated crypto suits with silent comm channels and deep rhythm light bands. Art and language based on harmonics, pressure waves, and symbolic delay. Their major city, Virenth's Hollow, is carved into a moon's crust, lit by memory walls and geothermal plumes. Civilization features. Infrastructure. Partial Dyson swarm, vast rings and modular satellites capturing nearly all the star's energy. Planetary habitats. Each planetary body in the system is partially colonized or restructured. Light thread transit grid, star-to-planet data and transit corridors that use photon routing and gravitic lifts, ecological synchronization, Catharans ensure no biome or culture is erased, only blended at intersections. Cultural unity. United under the Tri-Corona Accord, a constitution recognizing their trinary origin. Shared pantheon of cultural archetypes. The flame, day. Power, clarity, risk. The horizon, twilight. Union, diplomacy, adjustment. The veil, night. Memory, mystery, depth. Celebrations orbit the star. The solar processions involve orbital craft trailing light ribbons visible from every moon and station. The silence beyond the flame, a Catharan excerpt. We were born in silence, not merely of sound, but of the stars themselves. We looked to the sky and saw not a sea of fire, but an ocean of shadow. The ancients called it the great absence, the breathless sea, the void that waits. And in it we were alone, or so we believed. Impetus for space travel near the periphery of the void. If Cathara formed near the periphery of the void, stars would be observable on the twilight and potentially dark sides of the planet. On the twilight plains of Cathara, ancient star priests recorded these distant shimmers, clustered like embers at the edge of a dark field. These stars became known as the Silent Choir. They believed these unreachable lights were civilizations singing across the vastness, unaware of Cathara's presence. The Cathara saw themselves as the unheard note, the missing harmony. From this longing, a profound motivation arose: to reach the choir, to prove they were not forgotten, to answer what the stars had never said. Space travel became a sacred mission known as the Great Climb, which was meant not to conquer, but to join. Ships were built as cathedrals. Pilots trained in both physics and sacred song. Every launch was a hymn, every voyage a prayer against cosmic solitude. Their first-generation ship was named Eshtai, or The Voice Returned. Impetus for space travel in a filamentary island near the center of the void. If Cathara formed near the center of the void in a filamentary island, they did not see other stars outside of the void. There were none from their perspective. To live here was to believe they had been intentionally placed or abandoned, depending on the sect. The stars that surrounded them were sparse, like crumbs on a dark altar. Thus arose two dominant spiritual interpretations. One school believed they were chosen to ignite the void, to carry fire where there was only shadow. Another believed they were exiles, descendants of a shattered civilization expelled from a more luminous realm. In both cases, their culture internalized an immense responsibility. Space travel was not curiosity. It was atonement, prophecy, or cosmic duty. They engineered massive generation arcs not to escape, but to inflame, to awaken other islands, seed stars with life, or rebuild the lost web of meaning. Each ship carried not only DNA and memory, but dreams sculpted into stone, preserved thought, encoded hymns, and cultural seeds. Their first void-traversing vessel was called Nithsarun, or the flame that remembers. Cultural symbols: the spiral torch, the ever-ascending flame within the void. The empty circle, a starless ring representing the great silence. The twin skylines, one full of stars, one nearly bare. For this thought experiment, Cathara is assumed to exist near the edge of the void, exiting into Borg space. The Cathara, having evolved within the sparse expanse of the void, would be acutely aware of the fragility and scarcity of matter. Once they achieved warp drive or FTL capability, several strong motivations would converge to compel them to search for other solitary systems and filamentary islands within the void. Resource scarcity as existential pressure. The void contains very few stars and, by extension, very little accessible matter. Metals and heavy elements needed for starship hulls, AI cores, and fusion systems would be finite. Water might be limited to specific icy moons or comets within their system. Helium-3, or antimatter for energy generation, may require external harvesting. Thus, expansion wouldn't be optional, it would be a survival imperative. FTL travel opens access to isolated systems, asteroid clouds, primordial black holes, black dwarfs, and rogue planets that otherwise would be unreachable across the void's lightless gulf. Filamentary islands as lifeboats or sanctuaries. The few filamentary structures in the void, such as tenuous threads of dark matter, hydrogen, or stray stars, would become strategic priorities. They could act as way stations, mining outposts, or settlements. Each one might be a potential cradle for new Catharan enclaves, offering redundancy in case the Catharan home system is ever compromised. These rare oases would also hold scientific and spiritual value, possibly seen as echoes of the galactic web outside the void, or ancestral beacons pointing toward a greater destiny. Technological needs, power, and infrastructure. Even a Dyson swarm around their star would have limitations in terms of supporting an expanding civilization. Interstellar travel requires exotic fuels, quantum entanglement networks, refueling platforms, and data relay stations across vast emptiness. Building a void-spanning logistics network demands access to more raw materials than their system alone could provide. Thus, once they break the FTL barrier, resource scouting would become one of the highest priorities for explorers, AI scouts, and generation ships. Philosophical and religious mandates. Their culture may intertwine exploration and cosmology. In the context of the void, expansion might be seen as igniting the dark, bringing light and life to the unlit places. A divine mission, filling the silence left by a quiet cosmos. A return, searching for lost kin or for evidence of a cosmic progenitor race that seeded them in isolation. Some sects may even worship isolated stars as holy relics and encouraging pilgrimages to them, even if they are sterile or hard to reach. Scientific curiosity and FTL cartography. Mapping the void becomes a galactic-scale project, undertaken for both survival and intellectual purpose. Discovering black holes, black dwarfs, red dwarfs, or technology from races captured or trapped in the void would fuel technological innovation and socio-cultural unification. Catharan historical inflection, first awareness of the Borg. If the Catharan homeworld lies at the edge of the void, bordering Borg space, then their first encounter or even mere awareness of the Borg would represent a seismic moment in their interplanetary history. Following is an extrapolated account of how the Cathara might have come to know the Borg and how it shaped their philosophy, strategy, technology, and expansionist efforts. Phase 1, Border Echoes and Unseen Threats circa 2000 cycles ago. As the Cathara developed deep space resonance sensors and entanglement-based listening arrays, they began to register anomalies near the threshold of the void. Temporal eddies, subspace scars, and strange energy signatures emanating outside the edge of the void. These disturbances were initially believed to be natural, remnants of star births or the collapse of primordial black holes. But then something changed. Over time, these anomalies expanded across the circumference of the void and became predictable, organized, patterned. Entire sectors became silent, too silent. Stars blinked out not from entropy, but from consumption. Matter itself was disappearing. Though no Borg vessel had ever crossed into Catharan space, they intercepted fragmentary resonance echoes of a word repeated by dying civilizations. Borg. This was the Cathara's first whispered contact with the collective. Phase 2. Theoretical encounters and cultural shifts. Once analyzed and deconstructed, the concept of the Borg was interpreted not as a species, but as an existential force, a dark mirror of Catharan philosophy. Catharan principles. Individual isolation within collective resonance. Sacred matter in a silent universe. Expansion to evade discovery. Borg principles. Absolute assimilation and erasure of self. Indiscriminate consumption of all matter. Expansion to assimilate all. This ideological opposition triggered a spiritual and strategic awakening. Catharan philosophers proposed that contact with the Borg was inevitable, and thus they must hide, not through stillness, but through motion and depth. This birthed the doctrine of voidward drift, a unifying Catharan belief that survival lies deeper in the void, away from the galactic tide of the Borg. Philosophical consequences, the Borg as catalyst of evolution. Theological reframing. Cathara began to mythologize the Borg as the inevitable chorus, a warning of what happens when unity supersedes consciousness. Borg space became a spiritual caution zone, a silent abyss into which no thought returns. Chronometric realignment. Borg expansion around the void was used to mark a new era in Catharan history. Pre-silence and post-whisper, which denoted life before and after the detection of Borg signals. Technological advancements prompted by the Borg threat. Resonance cloaks. Void ships emit entangled white noise to simulate cosmic background static. Black duck shipyards. Entire shipbuilding facilities relocated into gravitationally shielded pockets deep in the void. Ancestral shard. Matrices. Non-digital memory cores designed to preserve knowledge in case of Borg data corruption. Quantum diaspora protocols. In event of Borg discovery, Cathara colonies scatter using predetermined vector branches, cutting all comms to appear extinct. Catharan key technologies. To explore and colonize the void, an immense, mostly empty expanse of space, the Cathara would require a specialized and highly advanced suite of technologies engineered for long-range autonomy, resource extraction in extreme isolation, and deep space survivability. Their unique environmental origin in the void would give rise to capabilities that balance resilience, redundancy, and spiritual or philosophical intent. Void-adapted artificial intelligence, VAAI. Purpose: manage multi-decade missions. Make autonomous decisions in data-sparse, low-signal environments. Interface with alien terrain and unknown cosmic variables. Features: self-evolving neural architecture, subconscious symbiont integration for Cathara pilots. Uses dream logic inference when input data is too sparse. FTL navigation technologies. Purpose: traverse tens to hundreds of thousands of light years of mostly barren space. Key technologies: space-time shearing drives allow temporary corridors across compressed void geometry. Gravitational filament slingshots use tenuous cosmic strings or matter filaments to accelerate across vast gaps. Stellar ghost tracking predict the location of rogue stars or islands based on gravitational wave echoes. Void resource extraction platforms VREPS. Purpose: mine rare materials from rogue planets, interstellar asteroids, or ancient star remnants. Capabilities: in situ refinement of metals, ices, volatiles. Drone swarms that can deconstruct planetary crusts and gas giant cores. Fusion forge reactors powered by isolated deuterium reserves or harvested black dwarf decay. Autonomous seed world construction units. Purpose: build livable environments on found matter islands or rogue planetary bodies. Features: terraforming nanoclouds that repair atmospheres or catalyze biosynthesis. Fractal dome colonies, modular self-building cities adapted to local gravity/light/wind conditions. Cultural embedding libraries that grow in sync with Cathara mental patterns and rituals. Biotech suits and genetic modulation. Purpose: protect explorers from unshielded radiation, gravitational vacuums, or chemically alien systems. Suit capabilities: symbiotic second skin grown for each Catharan. Sensory resonance with ship AIs and command clusters. Self-healing tissues, light-based energy harvesting, nutrient recycling. Deep void signal relays and echo memory beacons. Purpose: maintain communication across vast distances with massive time lag. Systems include quantum entanglement spires that store and relay compressed culture packets, memory lights, gravitational holograms that carry messages encoded in cosmic microwave ripples, ancestor cores that preserve the emotional and historical state of every mission for future retrieval. Spiritual cognitive interfaces. The Cathara, being deeply philosophical, may blend technology with culture and belief. Pilgrimage ships that trace forgotten cosmic web paths based on mythic cycles. Void chant resonators that turn local radiation into tonal maps of navigable space. Conscious architecture that absorbs emotion and history, influencing decision-making and sacred memory. Primordial black hole mining station. Name: Jareth extraction crucible. Type: deep void industrial superstructure. Location: stable orbit around a primordial black hole within a gravity-suppressed echo null zone. Primary function: harness and extract high-energy particles, quantum flux, and exotic matter from the accretion disk and relativistic jets of a primordial black hole. Functions as both a mining station and a gravitational resonance node for energy and data relay across the void. Core extraction methods. Blandford-Znajek. Process taps rotational energy from the black hole via magnetic fields aligned with the accretion disk. Hawking drift siphons, specialized nanothread collectors positioned near the event horizon to trap and channel Hawking radiation into condensed quantum batteries. Graviton lensing arrays harnesses gravitational lensing to refine the beam paths of energy particles for separation and containment. Structural features. Event frame lattice, a titanic ring-like superstructure surrounding the black hole, stabilized by graviton anchor pylons. Adaptive shells, station segments constantly reorient to manage time dilation effects, gravitational turbulence, and relativistic energy surges. Phase-tuned collector towers, perpendicular energy capture towers that harvest plasma and magnetic flows from the polar jets. Power and transmission. Energy output rivals entire planetary grids used to power Catharan colony worlds. Supply void fleet operations. Feed communication beacons, e.g., echo memory relays. Quantum entangled cores ensure near instantaneous data synchronization despite relativistic effects. Security and control. Voidwalker pilots, VAAIS, maintain internal navigation and gravitational stability. Silence protocol traps are deployed to scramble hostile sensor signals and weapon guidance systems. Entire station functions semi-autonomously, directed by ancient mission cores encoded with ancestral directive matrices. Cultural significance. Seen not just as a utility node, but as a temple of cosmic balance, a place where the Cathara extract sacred energy from entropy itself. Rituals and resonance chants accompany each mining cycle, aligning crew intent with gravitational harmonics. Black Dwarf Mining Station. Name, Threnic Substellar Coreforge. Type, planetary scale extraction facility orbiting a cooled stellar remnant. Location, gravitational anchor orbit around an ancient black dwarf in the outer void. Primary function, harvest ultra-dense, slow-decaying matter and exotic isotopes from the crystalline surface and magnetized layers of a black dwarf star. Supports long-term Catharan material needs for void fleet ship fabrication, biotech infusion, and resonance weapon cores. Core extraction methods. Cryo-cracking arrays drill into the degenerate carbon lattice of the black dwarf, extracting hypercondensed elements such as crystallized iron, oxygen neon magnesium blends, and exotic isotopes. Magnetic shear inductors harness the black dwarf's residual magnetosphere to extract rare paramagnetic elements and strip them for use in superconductive circuitry. Thermal tunneling pods bore into localized heat pockets where radioactive decay still occurs, gathering slow-release energy sources for long-duration missions. Power and utility uses gravitational friction and latent magnetism to self-power. Energy and materials are funneled to colony ship hull construction, void fleet armor and shielding matrices, VAAI core lattice synthesis, structural design. Segmented dock rings rotate in opposing directions to cancel gyroscopic drift. Crustwalkers, automated mining mechs traverse the cracked glass-like surface. Resonance elevators transmit harvested material to orbital foundries and entanglement relay nodes. Environmental challenges. Extreme brittleness of star crust leads to frequent quakes and fissure collapses. Near absolute zero temperatures and faint gravitational flux distort timekeeping and AI sensor calibration. All crew or AI units require sub-zero grade insulation suits or hardened biotech shells. Cultural significance. Black dwarfs are considered final witnesses of light, dead stars whose bodies still provide sustenance. Mining is often accompanied by ceremonial silence or harmonic dirges that resonate through the station's structure, preserving the memory of extinct suns. Summary. Void AI, autonomy, decision-making, and isolation. FTL and sling drives, FTL, traversal across the void. Extraction platforms, harvesting matter from rogue systems. Seed world builders, colonization and bioadaptation of new sites. Biotech suits, personal survival in hostile or unlit environments, deep space beacons, interstellar communication, cultural memory, spiritual interfaces, navigation through myth, instinct, and resonance, black hole mining, mine exotic energy and matter, black dwarf mining, mine exotic matter. The Cathara, as reconstructed in this study, represent a civilization whose very existence is a function of scarcity, silence, and adaptation to extremes. Emerging from a tidally locked world within the Delta Quadrant void, their biology, culture, and technologies embody the principle that constraint can act as a catalyst for complexity. The triadic divergence of dayside, twilight, and nightside Catharans demonstrates how localized environmental pressures can produce distinct genetic and cultural strains while preserving species-wide cohesion. In contrast to civilizations formed in resource-rich stellar clusters, the Cathara unified through necessity, developing a Type II infrastructure that prioritized conservation, resonance-based communication, and the purposeful repurposing of all matter. Strategically, their early awareness of the Borg forced a reframing of doctrine. The void became not only their home, but their shield, and every intrusion was interpreted through a dual lens, as desecration and as potential resource. Unlike the Federation, which seeks cooperation through openness, or the Borg, which seek assimilation through erasure, the Cathara evolved a third pathway, avoidance and redirection, turning hostile incursions into lessons of consequence while maintaining the primacy of silence. From a comparative perspective, the Cathara highlight the range of possible responses to existential threat in the galactic context. Where some powers emphasize expansion and domination, the Cathara embody a philosophy of concealment, reflection, and conservation. Their survival doctrine, to be unseen is to endure, is as much metaphysical as it is strategic. In narrative terms, their eventual intersection with Voyager illustrates a broader theme, that encounters between radically different civilizations test not only technologies, but the philosophical assumptions underpinning them. The Cathara force us to consider whether resilience requires confrontation, accommodation, or retreat into deeper forms of silence. Ultimately, this extrapolation affirms that the Cathara should not be understood as mere antagonists of convenience, but as a speculative mirror held up to the Federation and the Borg alike. They remind us that life can flourish even in the most inhospitable conditions, that survival is not always synonymous with conquest, and that in a universe defined by noise, silence itself can be a civilization's most enduring weapon. This concludes the excerpt of Beyond the Black Curtain. If you enjoy this work, please rate, comment, join, and share, as it helps me with the algorithm to reach new readers. The complete 210-page book with 87 high-resolution cinematic digital painting and images is available now at Amazon, Apple, Barnes & Nobles, Google Books, Kobo, and Spotify. Links are in the description. The book is available in audiobook, ebook, paperback, hardcover, and screenplay. In the next edition of the Fluid Dynamics podcast, we will explore Section 31's influence on Deep Space Nine, the redacted logs. This thought experiment is a speculative intelligence compendium examining the clandestine reach of Section 31 within the events and characters of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. While the existence of Section 31 remains officially unacknowledged, its shadow looms large over pivotal moments in Federation history, moments where ideals were tested, compromised, or quietly preserved through unspoken acts. Although intelligence agencies like the Obsidian Order surveilled everyone, Section 31's focus was identifying important and exceptional individuals in key positions to make them sympathizers or recruits. If Section 31 failed in those attempts, they would then attempt to coerce, influence, or manipulate said individuals to indirectly guide them to do the organization's will. The television series Enterprise and Deep Space Nine provided glimpses into the organization and its methods. Picard, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Discovery, and all the Alex Kurtzman movies will not be referenced or mentioned as these sources are not canon. However, the Star Trek books, Rogue, Shadow, Cloak, Abyss, Zero-Sum Game, Disavowed, Control, provides details into the organization and its agents, which shows Section 31 paid particular attention to Starfleet captains that were staunch ethical idealists. The USS Enterprise NX-01, USS Enterprise NCC-1701, and USS Voyager NCC-74656 all had a Section 31 presence to counter-monitor each ship's respective captain. However, DS9 Section 31 agents, 5 in total, were not there to counter-monitor Captain Sisko, because Sisko was one of Section 31's most efficient and ruthless agents. Blending canon, extrapolated science, and psychological analysis. This work is structured as Section 31 internal training and threat assessment files, as it dissects the psychological, ethical, and strategic dynamics behind the organization's manipulations and interactions with figures such as Benjamin Sisko, Julian Bashir, Elim Garak, Michael Eddington, Odo, and the enigmatic Ishan Kroll. It blends canonical events with plausible extrapolation, portraying a chilling portrait of how the Federation defends itself from the darkness, sometimes by becoming it. Whether viewed as a necessary evil or an existential threat, Section 31 raises enduring questions. Who gets to decide what the Federation must sacrifice to survive? And when the shadows act in our name, do we remain who we say we are? This thought experiment does not offer answers. It offers a mirror. Until next time, peace.